Okay, everybody, here we are. I'm going to try to keep an eye on your comments this time. And I have everything playing over here. So hopefully I'll see your comments when we go. But listen, tonight we are talking about this big question. Are you genetically doomed to the disease of obesity? I hope everybody can hear me. It looks like it's happening. I have my headset on today instead of the other microphone, so hopefully it's good. All right. So I watched the Oprah special on obesity 3 times now, and there were tears for so many reasons. Um, it really touched me on an emotional level, but then I had other kinds of tears too. The pain of obesity is real. I have felt it. I have friends that have felt it, and it doesn't always come down to looks. A lot of times it's that we can't do all of the things that we want to do deep in our hearts. We feel stuck without energy in a habitual rut. It's not a good experience. Is this obesity that's running so rampant and the diseases that go along with it, are they inevitable? I mean, is it truly a disease? Is obesity a disease? Meaning, is it an inherent problem that is ultimately irreversible? Is it genetic? Is it unavoidable? So this is what I want to address today. And I hope you stick with me through it. And if you watch the replay, let me know. If this is helpful for you in any way, shape, or form, let me know, especially as you get toward the end. So, NHANES, that's a national survey-based study with data collected annually. It actually kind of sucks when it comes down to the epidemiological and observational study, subjective survey data analysis that people do. It's horrible because you can literally ask really bad questions, look at a limited amount of data, and come to really horrible conclusions, like I talked about last Tuesday. But it is great when it comes to labs and objective data because they go with a mobile unit to every single participant in the survey, and they do a full physical diagnostic. So they take blood work from everyone and they do measurements and all that sort of thing. And now over 90%, as of the last time they looked at this, of people in the US are metabolically unhealthy. They're over the threshold in 3 of the 5 markers for metabolic health, and that usually is indicative of fatty liver, heart disease, and at the very least, insulin resistance, if not prediabetes or diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and those types of things. So this means that metabolically unhealthy just means that someone doesn't convert their food to energy very well, and their systems are out of balance, and often that whole thing leads to a lot of inflammation, and hence the diseases that are based in inflammation. Most of the U.S. is on this track of diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular disease, neurological and neurodegenerative diseases, and autoimmune diseases, among the few. All of which are ultimately caused by this chronic inflammation, which is a hallmark of metabolic illness. So medicine wants to do what medicine does, right? It wants to get rid of your symptoms. It wants to turn off the smoke alarm, and it doesn't tend to be so concerned with fire, in my experience. In my world, we call that fire the root cause. So what does this have to do with Oprah Special and obesity, and who the heck am I to be talking about it with you today? I am Stephanie Pasniukis, founder of SJP Health and Wellness. I am a neuroscientist with backgrounds also undergraduate in psychobiology and biochemistry. I have my PN1, health and nutrition coaching. I have my I'm a culinary nutrition expert for basically having food as medicine. So that is the perspective that I am coming from. And I work with people who are very, very interested in creating a health style to solve their health problems. And perhaps that's you. But today, I actually really want to talk about the weight loss pills sweeping the country. I want to talk about semaglutide, the biggest, and some of the others. If we look at Ozempic, for example, we can see that in just 2 years, from 2018 to 2020, they went from 264 million in revenue to 3.48 billion. And by 2023, just 3 years after that, it was $14 billion. So this industry has skyrocketed. Before Ozempic, most of the drugs were specifically used for diabetes, but once Ozempic hit the market, the massive amount of revenue gained was within weight loss, specifically. They so much want everyone on this drug. And based on NHANES, which I just talked about, 90% of the people are on the track to be able to be using this drug one day. That's a lot of people. This is one of the biggest markets in the world today. This is a jackpot right up there with statins and Viagra. I mean, come on, right? They want you on this. So today I want to delve into whether this is truly the miracle drug that we have been waiting for all this time, or not. Hi, Val. All right. So let's dive in. Let's start with this. What is the problem that these drugs solve? Is it effective? Then we can start looking at how it works, how our bodies are supposed to work, the side effects, and the choice that is set before us. So semaglutide and similar type drugs is named by the respective manufacturers. That's tirzepatide, exenatide, liraglutide, diaglutide, abiglutide. They're designed originally for diabetes, but work for obesity and weight loss. For diabetes, the goal was to signal fullness, stimulate insulin, and control blood sugar. And by doing this, there was weight loss, a positive result in reducing fatty liver and cardiovascular disease, diseases that usually go all together as they have the same root cause. And you know, we saw in the Oprah special that people had this outcome, especially the one young girl who, from a very, very young age, it was clear that she had a true genetic cause of her obesity. So recently, there was a huge lobby for these companies. They've got all these medications, they want to make money. There was a huge lobby by these companies to get obesity to be recognized as a disease so that hopefully insurance would start covering weight loss treatments and they could sell more of their drug and have insurance pay for it. Because frankly, right now, when insurance doesn't cover it and somebody is managing to get a prescription for these weight loss drugs, it's about $1,000 to $1,200 a month at this present time for that. So we're talking about at least $12,000 a year out of your pocket. I don't charge that much. um, you know, so needless to say, um, what are they, they're getting a lot here. And my question is obesity a disease? So they found that there's a roughly 4 states with regards to obesity. There's a true genetic disorder or mutation, and that's about 1 to 5% of the population. Okay, so it's very rare. A strong polygenic predisposition, which looks to be segments of certain chromosomes. There's a handful, 5 to 10 chromosomes that seem to have sections that are related to obesity. They haven't been able to identify specific genes because when they look at specific genes, it's a very weak correlation. But when they look at it from a genomic perspective, without looking at the purpose of the genes on that chromosome, they're seeing it. But when they look at genes that look like they have something specifically to do with weight, they're not seeing that really. So this strong polygenic predisposition, these require an environmental trigger for full obesity, but even in non-obesogenic environments, these individuals will still likely be considered overweight. There's also weak susceptibility. So one will exhibit obesity only in an obesogenic environment. I'll talk about that at the end. What's an obesogenic environment? It's an environment conducive to gaining weight, such as the kind of environment we live in where there's grocery stores everywhere that are mostly full of ultra-processed foods that have a lot of calories and no nutrients, or that are primarily made in a lab. So those types of things, a place where food is always available and there is no feast or famine cycling, those are considered obesogenic environments. And then the last category are those who are genetically resistant to obesity. Yep, that happens. Yes, let's just all admit we're jealous about that right now. Okay, so a definitive analysis on this came to the following conclusion. And if anybody's interested in the study, I'm more than happy to share it with you. I shared it to all of the people that are in my email list today. But the quote is this. This is their conclusion after many, many pages of all of the genetics that they could dive into. So it's really fascinating reading for me, probably not so fascinating for you. The obesity epidemic we are facing today occurred only over the past 3 decades and now it's been more since that paper was written, and can clearly not be explained by changes in our genome. That just means that all of our genes are the same as they were thousands of years ago. We haven't changed our genome. The rapid weight gain in the population is more likely due to a changing environment that encourages consumption and discourages expenditure of energy, behaviors that are poorly compatible with our pre-agricultural hunter-gatherer genes. Therefore, most obesity cases come about not as a result of a markedly defective biology, but are rather caused by maladaptive behaviors nurtured by an obesogenic environment. So, we're sitting at a desk all day long. We're not moving very much. We're in this building or that building. We're in cars a lot. So, if we're not sitting in a building, we're sitting in a car. We're all trying to get more movement in our lives. But I can tell you for me, that can be a challenge. I know for a lot of people that I talk to, that can be a challenge because our job requires us to be sitting or whatever. And a lot of the companies, when you go to a job, they're not, you know, that is not conducive to getting a whole lot of workout in, right? And a lot of and spending time in the gym isn't sufficient. We need a lot of non-exercise activity. We just need to be puttering around all the time, and we're not doing that anymore, okay? And we're eating more than our energy expenditure requires. So while there's this desire to believe that the state of obesity is inevitable and out of our own control, we actually know this isn't true. Am I saying it's our fault necessarily? No. Am I saying that we have a power that we didn't really know we had? Yeah, that's great news. Hello. Am I suggesting that we should just know what that is? No, because those we trust to help us with that and knowing what to do have been making a lot of money, leading us into the path of sick care because that is how they make money, period. And I know that sounds like a tinfoil hatter, but you got to follow the money. I mean, there's no reason to be naive here. Okay. So, and not only that, I mean, I could go on and on about how doctors aren't trained to help us change our lifestyle. They can tell us in the doctor's office, you need to change your lifestyle. We don't know what the hell in the world that means. And so we can't. And they just call us non-compliant and give us a drug, but we just don't have another way to go. There aren't enough health coaches in the world in my mind, and there are many doctors' offices that are starting to hire health coaches and people that are very specialized in this area to actually help people do the things that are going to be most beneficial to them. But on the other hand, that doesn't really make your doctor a lot of money. And they have a lot of loans to pay off. And they have a lot of liability insurance to cover. I mean, it's very difficult to make money as a doctor, to be honest. Yeah, Val, yeah, exactly. Um, all right, so this is so great. This is neither here nor there as far as the drugs themselves are concerned, but I wanted to bring your attention to the fact that drugs may not be a foregone conclusion as the only solution, because if we needed drugs as the only solution, that would mean that there was something genetic or some problem that was not being able to be overcome by another way. But we know that because of what I just said from that article, that there is another way. There is an environmental situation going on that is creating an obesogenic environment. That just means that since we're plopped in that environment, it is really on us to counter that as best we can. So, do the drugs work? That was our next question. Do they work? The short answer is for the thing that people are looking at, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, weight loss, yes. Semaglutide has a response of 63% of users experienced 5% body weight loss in the first year, with 27% seeing 10%. But tirzepatide, which is Mounjaro, has a 20% weight loss in a year because it's actually got multiple effects. And it's kind of coming at it from a multiple angles. And that's more complicated than you care about, I promise. So we heard in Oprah's special that other metabolic and inflammation-based illnesses seemed also to resolve. That's great. This is great. I mean, it seems great on the surface. People are losing weight. The risk of cardiovascular disease seems to go down. Their dyslipidemia, that high cholesterol, that's all going down. That things seem to be resolving. Okay. When you get rid of fat, there is a certain amount of inflammation that is going to decrease because fat in and of itself actually has a huge hormonal effect and can actually cause a lot of inflammation just by being present. So yes, there is some level of that. So how do these work? Okay, because this is probably the most important thing that I'm going to be sharing with you tonight. How do these work? Because clearly they're working. All of the studies. I mean, everybody is raving about these. The people that are taking them are so happy, mostly, it seems. So, what is GLP-1? GLP-1 is glucagon-like peptide 1. It's a hormone that is released as part of all of the hormones that are released during our digestive process. I have a list here of many of them that I had to learn as part of my certification, which might be more than what some doctors have to learn. I had to spend many more hours doing this than what they do in their normal, um, you know, medical school. The other drug that is a hormone, or the other hormone involved, which some of these drugs also impact, is called GIP. That's gastric inhibitory polypeptide. So I want to talk about what these are supposed to do in their body. Okay. One, these hormones signal fullness, your satiety, your fullness, that you don't, and honestly, our brains are powerful. When they tell us we're hungry, we want to eat. When they tell us we're full, we do not want to eat. Okay. Um, One of the reasons why we can keep eating certain types of food in our environment, specifically ultra-processed foods, is that they were engineered to bypass that satiety mechanism. They just want you to eat more. If you eat more, they make money. So they don't want your system to be working appropriately. All right. So at the end of the meal, these hormones are released so that the digestive process can move to the next phase. Not eating, but processing your nutrients. That is the next phase after you eat your food. So both hormones enhance insulin release since, well, you just ate. And this is important for getting any glucose from the carbohydrates in your food where it needs to go if present. It needs to go to your muscles. There's all kinds of things. When carbohydrates are detected in your food, and those are in need of insulin, then GLP-1 and GIP signal the pancreas to release insulin to deal with that. And also these slow gastric emptying. And really, that makes sense. I mean, why is your stomach going to kind of keep trying to push things through when it's empty, right? That's just using a whole lot of effort for no reason, right? It's like, you know, when you're at TSA and they're trying to get everybody through quickly, and then when nobody's there, it's just kind of, they're just sitting there. They get to take a break. There's nobody going. Um, that came to my mind because I was traveling this weekend and had some TSA experience. Um, all right. So you slow the gastric emptying because food's supposed to, it's going. It doesn't need to keep pushing it through very quickly. The slowed gastric emptying will keep you feeling full for longer. It's a trigger to not keep eating, right? Motility is slowed down as well because you don't need everything moving until you eat next. So um, we don't, like I said, we don't need to keep that machine running. The workers take a break till the next meal, and then they're supposed to get back to work. What is gastric motility? It is the stomach churning and mixing everything you ate around the stomach acid that was released when you started eating. By the way, that's a hormone called gastrin. You start eating, gastrin says, oh, make the stomach acid. We got to be able to break everything down. All right. And it breaks down our food so that we can actually absorb the nutrients in our small intestines. So that motility is really important. And when we can't do that, well, we don't get the nutrients as well. The other thing that acid does is act as a first line defense of our immune system for any bacteria that is invariably on our food. That acid breaks it down. Okay, so it's really important that we have good stomach acid. The last step is that it decreases acid secretion. So GLP-1 at the end of our eating, it's going to decrease that acid secretion. We don't need it up all the time. We just need it for breaking down our food. So that makes sense. If we stop eating and everything is moved through, we don't need the acid anymore. So one last thing I want to point out is how long these hormones are active for. I don't, sit down. Don't be standing for this. I don't want you to faint or anything. But at the end of eating, GLP-1 is normally released, so is GIP. But I'm going to talk about GLP-1 because that's what's really in the news is these GLP-1 agonist drugs, and that's their primary focus. It has a half-life in your body of 2 minutes. That means in 2 minutes, you only have half of what you had in the 2 minutes before. And at 4 minutes, you have 25%. And by 10 minutes, you don't have GLP-1 making any signals in your body. It's done its job. Okay? It's done its job. This is where in my programs we practice eating slowly and mindfully and become aware of this fullness and stop eating. Because you can, if you're eating food that's really good and tasty and easy to eat and chew, you can eat well beyond the point where your body would have said, I'm done, because you ate so fast. It takes time for your body to catch up. And you're like, by the time you realize you're full, 5 minutes after that, you're like, oh my God, I ate too much. Right. So one thing that you can do that everybody should do always is eat slowly, mindfully. Try being the last one done at the table. Become aware of your fullness and stop eating when you're about 80% full, because then within a few minutes you're going to be 100% full in all likelihood. So what do these drugs do? Well, the semaglutide half-life is 1 week, not 2 minutes, 1 week. That's 10,080 minutes, 5,000 times longer than your natural GLP. What does this mean? That means essentially we are shutting down the digestive system based on the dose or severely truncating its ability to function properly. That's what it's doing. Okay. So now, if you're stimulating GLP-1 and GIP, if you're on some of the newer drugs, even when you aren't eating, what are the implications for when you are eating? You're basically keeping this machinery on this like all the time. The work, you've got a whole bunch of workers that want to move the stuff through your stomach and do all that, and you're telling them, nope, we don't need you right now, constantly. You're just turning that off. Okay, so you don't have as much drive to eat. That's one of the effects of these drugs. You're at risk for low blood sugar. That's an acknowledged side effect because it stimulates insulin. So you're going to be forcing your body to try to get through glycogen and keep your blood sugar up, and then the insulin is going to constantly be being secreted, and so um, you're going to have there is a risk, and that's an acknowledged side effect on all of the inserts. I'm not making that up. Your stomach doesn't churn your food effectively. Well, we know that there's decreased gastric motility. Every single study about all this, they talk about that. That's actually, we know that's what GLP-1 does. So you have decreased motility and your stomach doesn't churn your food effectively. You have slower gastric emptying. So your food is going to sit in your stomach for longer. And you have decreased acid. And all three of those last things result in less nutrient uptake from your food. So you're eating, but not only are you eating less because you're not hungry, you're also not getting as much nutrients from it because your body isn't going to be as efficient in breaking all that down into its component parts and being able to absorb it in the small intestine. It's just not. So these lead to the side effects that are acknowledged for these drugs, such as nausea, which is in 20 to 40% of those who take it. And that nausea is two reasons. Hi, June. That nausea is for two reasons. One, low blood sugar, hypoglycemia causes nausea. That's why pregnant mothers, those who are pregnant get morning sickness when they're susceptible. They get low blood sugar, and it's usually at 3 in the afternoon and right when they wake up in the morning. Ah, but that's why. And um, the other reason they get nauseous is that they're eating while food is still in the stomach. And it actually gets to the point of vomiting in about 9% of the people because that's a symptom of gastroparesis, which is another possible side effect. You stop the motility, you stop the gastric emptying to the point where the stomach doesn't empty. And I personally know someone that's happened to from being on these drugs. So they've actually found food from the previous day in stomachs of those who are on this medication and have gone to the doctor because they're eating one bite and they're vomiting. They can't eat. So with low acid, your stomach doesn't produce intrinsic factor. So now we're on number 5. The last thing was the decreased acid. What's the side effect of that? Well, your low acid, your stomach doesn't produce intrinsic factor, and that is required in order to absorb vitamin B12, which is essential for red blood cell formation, which of course you need if you're going to have energy and carry oxygen to all of your cells, right? It's essential for nerve function and it's essential for DNA production. Okay, so vitamin B12 is critical, and you will have major problems without it. And of course, what else causes low acid? When you're on an acid inhibitor, when you're on acid blocking drugs, you're going to have the same problem, especially if you're on them for a long time. So, of course, all of the side effects normally associated with nutrient deficiency are going to be part of this, because if all of that is the case, then you're not going to be getting your nutrients from your food and you're not going to be eating as much food. So you're going to have side effects that are aligned with all of the various deficiencies of certain nutrients. If you're continually eating, if you're just eating the way you were before, which it turns out that many people, most people on these drugs don't change the way they eat, because some doctors actually tell them they don't need to. Now, if you read all of the articles online and you read the instructions and everything else, it always says with lifestyle change, take this drug and with lifestyle changes. Okay, that's important. You're never going to get away from that. Um, you know, so do the drugs work for insulin secretion? Yes. Does it bring down blood sugar? Yes. Does it cause weight loss? Yes. But more from the starvation method. It isn't that your body is releasing weight because your body is being brought back into this natural homeostasis that it is supposed to be in. No, this is throwing it off entirely. And this would be similar to, say, an extremely low calorie diet, or what they used to call starvation diet, where you're just not getting enough nutrients and your body's metabolic um, safeguards in your brain say, we're in starvation mode. And this is very different from fasting. This is very different from fasting, because when you're in this mode, you're chronically under eating and your body is saying, I'm chronically not getting enough calories. There isn't enough food in my environment. I have to slow down my metabolism so that when I do eat, I can get everything I can out of it. All right. Normally, if you're just doing fasting and you're doing feast and famine and you're actually eating till full, you release a hormone called cholecystokinin, which tells your brain, that's one of the satiety hormones, tells your brain, I've got enough, I'm safe. There's enough food in the world for me. And then you don't actually have that starvation response and you don't have the muscle wasting response. There's a lot of things that happen during fasting that are a completely different set of mechanisms and processes than what happens when you're on a when a chronic calorie deficit where you're not getting enough nutrition. Okay, different things entirely. Um, so this isn't the end. All right, I still have more to talk about. This isn't the end. The longer you're on the pill, whatever medication you're on for this GLP-1 agonist, your body is trying to adapt to how it is supposed to function. It recognizes that, oh my gosh, something's gummed up the works here. This thing is stuck in the on position. I've got to figure this out. This isn't right. And that affects so many other hormones in your body. It's not just like, oh, I get to turn this one little knob. No, that knob affects a whole bunch of other processes in your body. So what happens is, just like when your body starts ignoring insulin when it's chronically high, your body's going to start to ignore the drug as it stops listening to GLP-1 because it's not getting the right signals. And like I said, other adaptive mechanisms are in place as your body believes it's starving. So your metabolism is going to slow down. And if you're changing your lifestyle as well, if you're eating a high nutrient dense food and exercising, you might mitigate some small amount of these side effects if you can get some of those nutrients in. So what happens then if you stop taking the pill? Maybe you don't like all the side effects, or your insurance stopped covering it, or you ran out of money and you just can't keep taking this. What happens? Does everything get better? Unfortunately, the answer is a resounding no. What ends up happening is food obsession. It's like if you suddenly stop taking an antidepressant when you feel worse than you did before you started. What happened is your body countered the GLP-1 receptor, the GLP-1 drug, by downregulating the amount of GLP-1 receptors. So it's just trying to not hear it as much. This is why over time, they actually have to keep increasing the dose of your drug, because your body is trying to ignore it. And so it has to get louder. So now you have this food obsession and a decreased metabolism. So both of those together, you're going to eat more, plus you aren't going to be able to, you don't need as much energy because you decrease your metabolism. This is why in almost all cases, everyone that I've found, and they basically say this everywhere, when you stop the drug, you're going to gain all the way back plus within a year. This is why the doctors on Oprah's special said this is a lifelong medication. If you stop, the disease of obesity returns. And I agree. I quoted that, by the way. I agree with the first part, but this isn't the disease returning. It's that now your body is even further out of homeostasis. It did everything it could to negate the effects of starvation induced by the drug, and it could only do so much. And then when you stop the drug, everything it did to counter that is no longer, like, the drug's not there. So now all that it did is so much further from homeostasis. Um, and so, unfortunately, also for some reason, gastroparesis, nausea, and some of those other side effects actually persist for years, the obsession with food. And they don't know why, because you would think that your body would be easily able to cool back to normal. And for some reason, and we don't know why, it doesn't necessarily for some people. Um, I know somebody who stopped taking it over a year ago and still has food obsession in a way that she didn't have before she even started taking the drug. Okay. And this is very distressing to her. Um, so we've solved one problem and we've created a whole bunch more problems. And if you're one of the small percentage that truly has a disease of obesity that does not respond to lifestyle changes, then this medication may be a miracle pill, just like insulin was for type 1 diabetic who cannot make it at all, any insulin on their own at all, and will die without it. This can prolong and better the life of someone with it, and it's going to be better than what they experienced before. But let me back up because obesity for most, that remember, that's only 1 to 5% of people. For most, it's inextricably tied to the fact that we are in an obesogenic environment in America. That is when we have unlimited access to high energy density and empty calorie food. Where if you start taking this drug and you're eating a nutrient poor diet at 3,000 calories, and then you take the medication and now you're eating a nutrient poor diet at 1,500 calories, you're getting even fewer nutrients. So you're going to lose weight. But it's going to be effectively from starvation. And I just can't, in good conscience, support that in that way. But what if you're already taking this medication? What if you're already taking it? Then, just like they stated on Oprah special, you're going to need to do all the lifestyle changes anyway. There's no way around it. You need to learn what to eat. And now you have to add to that the best way to prepare it for maximum nutrient absorption. That is possible. And you may need to take other supplements that enhance digestion since your body isn't going to be as effective. You definitely want to move and exercise. You want to do all those things, right? You're still going to need to do those things and maybe it'll give you the energy to do it. Unfortunately, I'm not against medication that might help you get past a hump to get you started on the road that then you can then wean off of it, but this unfortunately isn't one of those drugs. And so, and of course, is it the end of the world if you have to go off of it? We can figure something out. You can go back to lifestyle changes and you can focus on that. It might be a little harder. But if you get dropped and you have to suddenly stop taking the drug and out of no choice of your own, it's okay. There's a lot you can still do. It may be a little harder for a little bit, but you got this. You can be the boss of your health. Um, so is it impossible? So I feel like it's impossible for these side effects to be truly as rare as they say. In that Oprah thing, they said these side effects are getting blown out of proportion. They're not nearly as much. Well, all of the 4 people I know who are on these modern drugs have had side effects, and 3 of them major beyond nausea. One nearly died. One has gastroparesis, and another had such bad side effects that they stopped for over a year and still has those obsessive thoughts, like I mentioned earlier. Okay. Um, Someone else responded to me in my profile today when I was asking. Um, they said, they were on Redex. That was an old weight loss drug originally when they first started finding out about GLP-1 drugs and things like that and other drugs. It was great while I was on it, but the weight came back when I wasn't on it. This is what she has to say. This isn't my words. This is her words. If you don't know the why you're doing something and don't change your brain, you will never achieve what you want. Your health journey must be sustainable, something you can do long term. You have to block out all the hype that's out there and keep your eyes on what works for you. She said, I could keep going, but I'll stop. I couldn't have said that better. I couldn't have said that better. And if you're considering this medication, this drug, then I really want you to consider what we've talked about today so that you can make an informed decision for yourself. I can't make your choice for you. My job in Be the Boss, Be Well Facebook group is to help you make empowered choices for you. Okay? I can't make those choices for you, but by God, I'm going to make sure that you have the information you need as best as I possibly can. In the end, it's going to be up to you. But I want you to question your doctor if you feel you need to. I don't want you blindly going along with everything they say. If your gut is telling you something different, ask them. And if your doctor pushes back on you for how dare you question my what I'm saying, I'm the doctor, that is a huge red flag. And can I tell you, I know a number of people came back to me and said things like that, and that made them very upset and was taking their power away. Don't let that happen to you. Don't let that happen to you. Okay? So anyway, I went on for way longer than normal today. This is one of those topics that is so heavy on my heart right now. Um, Val says, "Amen." Um, so if you're watching this afterward, let me know. Um, or not. I just hope that this has been helpful for you. Take care. Have a blessed evening, and turn off that blue light. Mine's going off. I'm at my computer. Turn it all off, and I'm going to get all nice and cozy with my sunset lamp and my book. Sweet dreams, everybody.